Rich man married the obese maid for revenge on his ikuuma, but she hid a secret. Bennett Harrison held Clara Miller's hands at the altar of St. Francis Church in Chicago, while his ex-fiancée, Tiffany, watched from the front row, her face tight with anger. What was supposed to be his perfect revenge was about to turn into something he never imagined. It was 3 months earlier that it all began, when Tiffany broke off the engagement in front of the entire Harrison family during Christmas dinner. Bennett could still hear the echo of her words reverberating in his mind. "You'll never get a woman who truly loves you for who you are, only for your money." Clara was in the kitchen that night, preparing dessert, when she heard the shouts coming from the dining room. She had worked for the family for 2 years, always discreet, always efficient. At 35, she carried a few extra pounds and always kept her brown hair tied up in a simple bun. No one in the family really knew her beyond the impeccable work she did. "Are you okay, Mr. Harrison?" she asked when she saw him come into the kitchen, his face red with humiliation. "Tiffany broke up with me," he replied, throwing himself into a chair. "She said I'm an empty man who only has money to offer." Clara dried her hands on her apron and poured him a cup of coffee. There was something in her eyes that Bennett had never noticed before, a serenity, a deep understanding that calmed him instantly. "People sometimes say things they don't really think when they're angry," she said softly. "Do you think she's right?" Bennett asked, surprising himself with his own vulnerability. Clara studied him for a moment before answering, "I think you have a lot more to offer than you realize. I've seen how you treat the staff, how you worry about Mrs. Martha when she's sick. Anyone can have money, but character is rare." That night, Bennett couldn't sleep. Clara's words echoed in his mind, but also a plan for revenge began to take shape. If Tiffany thought he could only get gold diggers, he would prove otherwise in a way that would humiliate her publicly. The next morning, he approached Clara in the pantry. "Clara, I need to make a strange proposal to you." She stopped organizing the supplies and looked at him with curiosity. "What kind of proposal, Mr. Harrison?" "I want you to marry me." Clara dropped the bag of rice she was holding. "Are you joking with me?" "I'm serious. It would be a marriage of convenience. You get financial security, I prove a point to Tiffany. Simple as that." "What point?" she asked, her voice trembling. "That I can marry someone who isn't interested in my money." Clara stared at him for a long moment. There was something in her eyes that Bennett couldn't decipher. "And after the wedding?" she asked. "You keep working here if you want. Nothing changes except you'll have access to a generous bank account and, well, Tiffany will have to eat her words." Clara looked down and was silent for so long that Bennett began to regret the absurd proposal. "I accept," she finally said, looking him in the eyes, "but with one condition." "What?" "I want a real wedding in the church. If we're going to do this, let's do it right." Bennett nodded, surprised by the request. "Deal." In the days that followed, Clara transformed. Martha, Bennett's mother, insisted on taking her to choose a wedding dress. At the boutique, Clara tried on several styles until she chose a simple, elegant, cream-colored one that brought out her brown eyes. "Are you sure about this, dear?" Martha asked as they waited for the alterations. "Yes, I am, Mrs. Martha. Your son is a good man, even if he doesn't believe it." Martha studied Clara with renewed interest. There was something about the way the young woman spoke that intrigued her. "Where are you from, Clara? We've never really talked much about your family." "I'm from rural Appalachia originally, a simple, hard-working family." It was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. Clara had been born Clara Miller on a farm in Charleston, the daughter of a rural bookkeeper and an elementary school teacher. She had access to an education that many children in the region didn't, always ranked first in her class, and earned scholarships. The news of the wedding spread quickly through Chicago's social circles. Tiffany was furious when she found out. "He's doing this just to spite me," she told her friends at the club. "He's going to marry the fat maid just to humiliate me." "Maybe he actually likes her," one of her friends suggested. "Please, Bennett barely notices she exists. This is pure stubbornness." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The wedding day arrived on a sunny April morning. St. Francis Church was decorated with simple arrangements of white flowers. Bennett waited at the altar, nervously adjusting his tie. He had deliberately invited Tiffany, and she sat in the front row with a poorly disguised expression of disdain. When the doors opened and Clara began walking down the aisle, a murmur rippled through the church. She was radiant. The simple dress highlighted her natural beauty, and she walked with an upright, confident posture that Bennett had never noticed before. When she reached the altar, she whispered something that made Bennett tremble. "Thank you for giving me this chance, but you should know I'm not doing this for the money." The priest began the ceremony, but Bennett could barely pay attention. Clara's words echoed in his mind. What did she mean by that? "Bennett Harrison, do you take Clara Miller as your wife, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, in richness and in poverty?" "I do," he answered, looking into her eyes. "Clara Miller, do you take Bennett Harrison as your husband, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, in richness and in poverty?" Clara hesitated for a second, looking deeply at him. "I do." When they kissed, Bennett felt something unexpected. It wasn't the mechanical kiss he had imagined. There was tenderness there, something real that left him confused. The reception was held in the hall of the club where Bennett was a member. Tiffany approached during dinner when Bennett was momentarily alone. "Congratulations, Bennett. I hope you'll be very happy with your choice." "Thank you, Tiffany. I will be." "I have a special gift for your wife," she said, pulling a small package from her purse. Tiffany walked over to the table where Clara was talking to some guests and handed her the present with a fake smile. "A little something for you, dear. I thought you might need it." Clara opened the package in front of everyone. It was a kitchen apron embroidered with the phrase "Happy at Home." An awkward silence fell over the table. Tiffany expected a reaction of humiliation, maybe tears. Instead, Clara smiled gently. "How thoughtful of you, Tiffany. I love cooking. It's an art that connects me to my roots. My grandmother always said that a woman who knows how to cook carries love in her hands. Thank you for recognizing that in me." The response was so elegant and full of dignity that Tiffany was left speechless. A few guests even discreetly applauded. Bennett watched the scene from afar, impressed. Where had Clara gotten that presence of mind? Later, during the couple's first dance, Bennett asked, "How did you know to answer like that?" "My mother taught me that elegance is priceless," she replied, "and that the best response to cruelty is kindness." "Your mother must be a wise woman." "She was. She passed away when I was 20. I'm sorry. I didn't know." Clara just nodded, but Bennett noticed a shadow of sadness in her eyes. After the honeymoon, which was just a weekend in Aspen at Bennett's insistence to keep up appearances, they returned to their routine. Clara insisted on continuing to work in the house. "Clara, you're my wife now. You don't need to work anymore," Bennett said. "I like working. It keeps me active, gives me purpose. Besides, I don't want the other employees to feel uncomfortable." Bennett accepted, but he began to observe her more closely. And the more he observed, the more intrigued he became. During a business meeting at home, Clara served coffee to the Italian investors. When one of them started speaking in Italian about the contract terms, she responded fluently in the same language, making a pertinent observation about the exchange rates. Bennett nearly dropped his coffee cup. "Since when do you speak Italian?" he asked after the investors left. "I've always spoken it. I also speak French and English. It's not relevant to my work here, so I never mentioned it." "What do you mean, not relevant? Where did you learn 3 languages?" Clara looked away. "I studied a lot when I was young. I had different dreams." "What dreams?" "Dreams that didn't come true," she said, leaving the room. That night, Bennett lay awake thinking, who really was the woman he had married? In the following days, he began to notice other strange details. Clara received letters addressed to Dr. Clara L. Miller that she quickly hid. Every Tuesday, she would leave for 2 hours claiming to go to the market, but returned without any purchases. One afternoon, Mrs. Eleanor, a 70-year-old woman who was a long-time client of the family, came for tea. When she saw Clara, she stopped mid-conversation. "Sorry, dear, but you look very familiar. Have we met before?" Clara became visibly tense. "I don't think so, Mrs. Eleanor. I have one of those common faces." No. I'm sure I've seen you somewhere important. Maybe in a magazine or on television." "You must be confusing me with someone else," Clara said quickly, leaving the room. Mrs. Eleanor remained thoughtful. "Bennett, your wife has something special. A presence, a way of speaking. She reminds me of someone important I met years ago." That night, Bennett decided to investigate. While Clara slept, he searched through her belongings. At the bottom of a drawer, he found bank statements showing monthly transfers of $5,000 to an account in the name of St. Jude Medical Relief. $5,000 was half her salary. Why was she donating so much money? The next day, Bennett pretended to leave for work but stayed undercover. He followed Clara when she left for her mysterious Tuesday outing. She went to a modest building in the city center. Bennett waited half an hour and then entered. It was a simple medical clinic serving low-income people. At the reception, he asked about Clara Miller. "Dr. Clara?" The receptionist smiled. "She's with the patients. She's our volunteer psychologist. She comes Tuesdays and Thursdays. An angel. That woman." Bennett felt the world spin. "Psychologist?" "Yes, graduated from the University of Chicago, specialized in trauma and depression. The patients love her." Bennett left the clinic completely confused. He went home and waited for Clara. "How was the market?" he asked when she arrived. "Normal," she replied, avoiding his gaze. "Clara, I need to know who you really are." She froze. "I'm your wife." "That's not an answer. You have a degree in psychology, speak 3 languages, work as a volunteer at a clinic. Who are you?" Clara sat down heavily in a chair and sighed. "I'm someone who lost everything and is trying to rebuild her life." "Lost what?" "My career, my reputation, my identity. Everything." "Tell me," Bennett said, sitting down beside her. Clara was silent for a long moment before beginning. "I was Clara Miller Sterling. I was married to a doctor, Dr. Sterling Vance. I had a thriving clinic, treated executives and politicians. I lived in a penthouse, had an imported car, dined at the best restaurants." Bennett listened in shock. "What happened?" "Sterling was involved in a scheme at City Hall. Irregular approvals for hospital construction in exchange for bribes. When I found out, I tried to convince him to stop. He laughed in my face. And you?" "I reported him. I handed over all the evidence I had to the district attorney's office." My God, Clara. Sterling was arrested along with half a dozen politicians and businessmen, but they had influence, money. They managed to turn the tables. Suddenly I was the villain of the story, the vengeful wife who fabricated evidence. I lost my professional license, my credibility. I had to get a divorce, sell everything to pay lawyers. Bennett was too shocked to speak. When there was nothing left, I came to Chicago. I changed back to my maiden name, started from scratch. The job at your house was the first opportunity that came up. Why didn't you tell me? Because no one believes it. And because... She hesitated. Because I fell in love with you. What do you mean? In the first few months working here, I saw who you really are. How you treat the staff, how you take care of Mrs. Martha, how you pay attention to details. You have a good heart, Bennett. Even when you were planning your revenge against Tiffany, I knew it was just hurt talking. Bennett was silent, processing everything. So you accepted my marriage proposal because I saw a chance to start over. And because you gave me hope that someone could accept me as I am now. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, feel free to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. That helps a lot for us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. That night, Bennett couldn't sleep. Everything made sense now. Clara's natural elegance, her knowledge, her way of handling difficult situations. She wasn't just a simple housekeeper. She was a woman who had lost everything for doing the right thing. The next morning, he found her in the kitchen. "Clara, about last night, if you want a divorce, I understand," she said without looking at him. That's not it. I want to understand better. You said you lost your professional license. It was suspended. They claimed I forged evidence, that I was mentally unstable after discovering Sterling's betrayal, since he had influence on the psychological board, but the evidence was real. Of course it was. I have copies of everything stored. Where? In a safety deposit box at the bank. Why? Because maybe it's time for you to fight to clear your name. Clara stared at him in surprise. Bennett, that was 5 years ago. It's over. I've accepted my new life. But what about the people who were harmed by the scheme? They deserve justice. I tried. No one would listen. Maybe now it's different. With the right lawyer, proper resources. Would you do that? For me? I'd do it for anyone who had the courage to do what you did. Clara started to cry. Why are you being so good to me? Because you're my wife and because, he hesitated, because I'm starting to realize that what began as revenge might be turning into something real. In the following days, Bennett hired the best law firm in Chicago. When the lawyers reviewed Clara's case, they were impressed. Miss Clara, your case was clearly a judicial persecution, said Mr. Julian Pierce, the lead attorney. The evidence you gathered is solid. The problem is that your ex-husband and his cronies still have influence. So there's nothing we can do. There is. The political landscape has shifted. Some of those involved have lost power. And there's a new DA in the district attorney's office who's reviewing corruption cases that were improperly shelved. How long would it take? At least a year, maybe 2. And it would be a painful process. They'll try to destroy your credibility again. Clara looked at Bennett. Are you sure you want to get into this? I am, but the decision is yours. Clara thought for a long moment. Let's move forward. As the legal process ran its course, the couple's life began to change. Clara stopped working as a housekeeper and went back to studying to update her knowledge in psychology. Bennett discovered that she was an intellectually stimulating companion. One night, while they were having dinner, she commented on an article she was reading about cognitive therapy. It's fascinating how our traumas can shape our perception of reality, she said. What do you mean? Take your situation with Tiffany, for example. The humiliation you felt made you act impulsively. You created a narrative where you needed to prove something to her, when really you needed to prove something to yourself. Bennett stopped eating. Go on. Revenge rarely gives us what we truly want. It's usually just a way to avoid dealing with the real pain. And what would my real pain be? Fear of not being loved for who you are regardless of the money. Tiffany touched a deep wound, and you reacted by trying to control her. Bennett was silent, impressed by her insight. And you? What's your real pain? Fear of being judged for my past. Fear that if people knew who I really am, they would reject me. Is that why you agreed to work as a housekeeper? To hide? Partly, but also because sometimes we need to completely reinvent ourselves to find who we really are. They looked at each other across the table, and Bennett felt something he had never felt before. It wasn't physical passion or superficial attraction. It was deep connection, mutual understanding. Clara. Yes? I think I'm falling in love with you, for real this time. She smiled, her eyes glistening with tears. I've been in love for a long time. That night, they kissed for the second time since the wedding. But now it was different. It was real, honest, vulnerable. 3 weeks later, Clara's case took an unexpected turn. Mr. Julian Pierce called on a Thursday morning. Dr. Clara, I have news. Sterling Vance was arrested yesterday. How? Operation Pure Health was launched early yesterday morning. They uncovered an even bigger scheme involving several public hospitals. Your ex-husband was the centerpiece. Clara was in shock. Does that mean? It means your original accusations are being validated. The district attorney's office wants to talk to you. You can get your license back and still receive substantial compensation. Bennett was by her side when she hung up the phone. He saw her tremble. It's too much of a coincidence, she said. Just when I'm happy, just when I've accepted my new life. Maybe it's not a coincidence. Maybe it's delayed justice. What if I don't want to go back? What if I'd rather just be Clara Miller, Your wife. Then that's what you'll be. But it would be unfair to all the people who were harmed if you didn't at least testify. Clara knew he was right. The hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Clara prepared intensively, reviewing all the documents, refreshing her memory on every detail of the scheme. On the day of the hearing, she wore a navy blue suit that Bennett had bought for her. She looked elegant and professional. "Are you sure you want to come with me?" she asked. "I'll be by your side always," he replied. The courtroom was packed. Sterling Vance was present in handcuffs, much thinner and older than Clara remembered. When their eyes met, he looked away. The prosecutor, D.A. Meredith Brooks, was a woman in her 50s with an imposing presence. "Dr. Clara, you were the first person to report the scheme we are investigating today. Can you tell us how you discovered the irregularities?" Clara took a deep breath and began her account. She spoke about the conversations she had overheard, the documents she had found in Sterling's office, the suspicious meetings at home. "Why did you decide to file the complaint, knowing it could destroy your marriage and your career?" "Because I saw medical records of children who died in hospitals that lacked proper infrastructure. Hospitals that were improperly approved in exchange for bribes. I couldn't sleep anymore knowing my silence cost lives." The testimony lasted 3 hours. When it ended, Clara was emotionally drained. Outside the courthouse, Sterling approached her. "Clara, No," she interrupted. "We have nothing to talk about. I know you hate me, but—" "I don't hate you, Sterling. I forgave you a long time ago, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't pay for what you did." Sterling looked at Bennett, who was standing beside Clara. "I hope you know what kind of woman you're with," he said. "She's incapable of doing anything dishonest, even when it hurts her." "I know exactly what kind of woman she is," Bennett replied. "That's why I married her." When they left the courthouse, Clara broke down in tears in Bennett's arms. "It was harder than I imagined," she said. "But you were brave. I'm proud of you." "Do you really think I did the right thing?" "I'm absolutely sure." 2 weeks later, the consequences of the testimony arrived. The psychological board announced that it would reopen Clara's case and likely restore her license. The district attorney's office offered a settlement of $2 million for the emotional and material damages she had suffered. $2 million, Clara said, looking at the document. "That's more money than I've ever had in my life. What do you want to do?" "Part of it I want to use to continue the volunteer work at the clinic, maybe expand the services. I don't know. I never thought I'd have a second chance." "Do you want to go back to practicing psychology professionally?" "I do, but differently. I want to work with people who have been wronged, who lost everything like I did. I want to help them rebuild their lives." Bennett smiled. "I think that would be perfect for you." "And us?" she asked. "What will happen to us?" "What do you mean?" "Now that I'll have my own money, my own career, will you still want an independent wife?" Bennett laughed. "Clara, I married you thinking I was doing you a favor. Today I know that I was the one who got the favor. You taught me what true love is." "Really? Are you sure?" "I am. Actually," he hesitated, "there's something I want to ask you." Bennett knelt on the living room floor and pulled a small box from his pocket. "What are you doing?" Clara asked, surprised. "Clara Miller, will you marry me again? This time not out of revenge, not out of convenience, but out of love." Clara started crying. "Bennett, I want to do it all over again. A real party with our friends and family. I want all of Chicago to know that I married the most incredible woman in the world." "Yes," she said, holding out her hand for him to put the ring on. It was a simple solitaire, but it meant so much more than any expensive jewelry she had ever owned. They scheduled the new ceremony for 2 months later. This time it would be a big party at Bennett's house, with 200 guests. Clara insisted on inviting all the staff from the clinic where she volunteered, as well as college friends she had lost touch with. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and hit the like button and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The week before the party, something unexpected happened. Tiffany showed up at Bennett's house. "Can I talk to you?" she asked. "Sure, come in." They sat down in the living room, and Tiffany was silent for a moment. "I came to apologize." Bennett was surprised. "Apologize?" "For what I said the night we broke up. For the cruel gift I gave Clara at the wedding. For acting like a petty, jealous person." "What made you change your mind?" "I heard about her story. What she went through, the courage she had. And I realized you married an extraordinary woman." "Yes, I did. When I broke up with you, I thought I was punishing you for being shallow. But the truth is, I was the shallow one. I could only see the money, the status. I never cared to know who you really were." "Tiffany? No, let me finish. Clara saw in you what I could never see. She fell in love with your character, your kindness. And you became a better man by her side." Bennett was moved. "Thank you for saying that. Can I talk to her? I want to apologize in person." Clara was in the garden when Tiffany approached. She tensed up but didn't move. "Clara, I came to apologize." "You don't have to. It's in the past." "I do. I was cruel to you without even knowing you. I was blind with jealousy and wounded pride." "Why jealousy?" "You broke up with Bennett." "Because even though I wouldn't admit it, I knew he was right for me. And when I saw you two together, I realized you had something I never had, the ability to truly love someone." Clara studied Tiffany's face. There was sincerity there. "I accept your apology, and thank you for breaking up with him." "Why?" "Because if you hadn't, I would never have had the chance to meet the incredible man he is." The two women hugged, finally burying the past. On the day of the second ceremony, the house was transformed. Bennett had hired the best decorators in Chicago. The garden was covered by a transparent tent with crystal chandeliers, exactly as Clara had dreamed of as a girl. This time the one who walked her down the aisle was Mr. Julian Pierce, the lawyer who had become a dear friend. In the front row sat Mrs. Martha, radiant. In the second row, the clinic staff, moved to see their Dr. Clara so happy. "Bennett Harrison," said the priest, "do you take Clara Miller as your wife to love and cherish her in joy and sorrow, in health and sickness, in wealth and poverty, all the days of your life?" "I do," he said, his voice steady and clear. "Clara Miller, do you take Bennett Harrison as your husband, to love and cherish him in joy and sorrow, in health and sickness, in wealth and poverty, all the days of your life?" "I do," she replied, smiling through tears. The kiss was long and passionate, drawing warm applause from the guests. During the party, Bennett gave a speech that moved everyone. "A year ago, I thought I knew what love was. I thought I knew my own wife. I was wrong. Clara taught me that true love isn't finding someone who completes you, but finding someone who inspires you to become complete. She taught me that courage isn't not being afraid, but doing what's right even when you're afraid. And she taught me that the best things in life come disguised, sometimes in the form of a housekeeper who carries a heart of gold and a warrior's soul." Clara also gave a speech. "When I lost everything 5 years ago, I thought my life was over. Today I know it was just beginning. Bennett gave me a second chance when I needed it most, and together we discovered that it's possible to rebuild not just a life, but a heart. Sometimes the best love stories start in the most unexpected way. The party lasted until dawn. When the last guests left, Bennett and Clara sat in the garden, still dressed in their wedding clothes. "Do you regret anything?" she asked. "Nothing. And you?" "Nothing either. Well, maybe hiding who I was at the beginning. If you hadn't hidden it, I probably wouldn't have given you the chance to get to know me. My pride wouldn't have allowed it." "That's true. Sometimes fate has to trick us a little to lead us where we need to be. Do you believe in fate?" "I believe in choices, and in second chances, and in people who make us want to be better." A month after the party, Clara officially got her license to practice psychology back. She rented a room in a modern office building and opened her own practice, specializing in treating people who had been victims of injustice. Bennett helped her decorate the space. They chose soft colors, comfortable furniture, artwork that conveyed hope. "What are you going to call the practice?" he asked. "New Beginnings Institute," she answered without hesitation, because it's never too late to start over. The first patient was a 60-year-old man who had been unfairly fired after 30 years with the company. The second, a woman who had lost custody of her children due to false accusations. The third, a young man who had been expelled from college for a crime he didn't commit. They all had something in common. They had lost hope. And they all left Clara's sessions a little stronger, a little more willing to fight. "How do you manage to give hope to people who've lost everything?" Bennett asked one night. "Because I've been in their shoes. I know it's possible to climb out of rock bottom, and I know that sometimes it's at rock bottom that we find our true strength." 6 months after reopening the practice, Clara received an unexpected offer. The University of Chicago wanted her to develop a specialization course in psychology of resilience and life reconstruction. "It's an incredible opportunity," Bennett said when she told him the news, "but it would mean less time for the practice and less time with you. Clara, you have to accept it. Think how many people you can help by training other psychologists specialized in this field." "Are you sure?" "I am. Besides," he smiled, "I have a confession." "What?" "I was thinking about cutting back my workload at the company, delegating more responsibilities to the managers." "Why?" "Because I want to spend more time with my wife, and because, well, I'm thinking about writing a book." "A book? About what?" "About how prejudices can keep us from seeing what's right in front of us, about second chances, about you." Clara kissed him, emotional. "We're both going to write stories then. I'll train new professionals, you'll tell our story, and together we'll prove that every ending can be a new beginning." A year later, the New Beginnings Institute was already seeing more than 200 patients. The specialization course at the University of Chicago had a waiting list, and Bennett had finished the first draft of his book titled Love in Disguise, A True Story of Second Chances. One Sunday morning, they were in the garden of their house having breakfast when Bennett asked, "Are you happy, Clara?" "Completely." "And you?" "I never imagined it was possible to be this happy." "You know what amazes me the most?" "What?" "How could our story have been different if I hadn't had that ego crisis because of Tiffany? Or if I hadn't had the courage to report Sterling? Or if you hadn't agreed to work at my house? Or if you hadn't noticed that I knew 3 languages?" They laughed, thinking about all the coincidences that had led them there. "Actually," said Clara, "I don't think they were coincidences." "What were they then?" "They were the right choices at the right time. Every decision we made, even the ones that seemed wrong at the time, brought us here. Like my stupid revenge plan against Tiffany, which gave me the chance to show who I really was. And my stubbornness in hiding my past, which made me value your courage even more when I discovered the truth." They looked at each other across the table, still amazed at the journey they had taken together. "Clara?" "Yes?" "Thank you." "For what?" "For teaching me that true love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be a better person. And thank you." "For what?" "For giving me a second chance when I didn't even know I needed one." That afternoon, they received an unexpected visit. It was Mrs. Eleanor, the woman who had recognized Clara months earlier. "I came to bring some news," she said, clearly emotional. "What news, Mrs. Eleanor?" asked Clara. "My grandson was accepted into the psychology program at the University of Chicago. He wants to specialize in the field you created. He said he wants to help people the way you helped our family." "What do you mean?" "Do you remember my son Austin, the one who was depressed after losing his job?" "I do remember. He was one of your first patients at the New Beginnings Institute. Today he has a new job and is engaged. He said you saved his life." Clara was moved. "I only helped him find his own strength." "That's exactly what my grandson wants to learn how to do. You've inspired a new generation, dear." After Mrs. Eleanor left, Clara hugged Bennett. "Do you realize what's happening?" she asked. "What?" "We're creating ripples. Every person we help will help others. Every story we transform generates new stories." "Like our own story." "Exactly. If we hadn't met, I might never have returned to practicing psychology. You might never have discovered that you could truly love. and now we're inspiring other people not to give up. That's what I love most about what we do. It's not just about the two of us, it's about every life we touch. That night, Bennett finished the last chapter of his book. The last sentence read, "Sometimes the best things in life come disguised. Sometimes the love we're looking for is right in front of us, waiting for us to have the courage to see beyond appearances. And sometimes the person we think we're saving is the one who truly saves us." 2 years after the first wedding, Bennett and Clara were at the same altar of St. Francis Church. But this time, it wasn't to get married again. It was to be the godparents of Austin's wedding, Mrs. Eleanor's son, who had met his fiancée at a lecture on overcoming adversity that Clara had given at the company where he worked. "You two are proof that everyone deserves a second chance," Austin said during his thank you speech. "And you are proof that true love can be born from the most unexpected places," the fiancé added. After the ceremony, Bennett and Clara walked hand in hand down the same street where she had worked as a housekeeper. "Did you ever imagine your life would be like this?" he asked. "Never. When I was young, I dreamed of professional success, money, recognition. Then, when I lost everything, I only dreamed of surviving. And now? Now I know that the most important dreams are the ones we don't even know we have. I never dreamed of finding a love like ours. I never dreamed of helping people the way I do today. I never dreamed of being truly happy. You know what impresses me the most? What? How much we've both changed. I was superficial, only interested in proving pointless points. You were reserved, hidden behind a mask. And today? Today we're better versions of ourselves. You taught me depth. I taught you to trust again. I think we saved each other. I agree. And now we're saving others." They stopped in front of the house where it all began. The sign at the entrance read, "Harrison Miller Family," the name they had chosen together. "Clara? Yes? If you could go back in time and change anything, would you?" She thought for a long moment. "I would change the pain people suffered because of Sterling's scheme. I would change the suffering you went through with Tiffany. But I wouldn't change our meeting. I wouldn't change our story. Neither would I. Even with all the pain, all the confusion, everything brought us here. And here is exactly where we want to be." 3 years later, Bennett's book was on the country's bestseller list. The New Beginnings Institute had expanded to 3 other cities in rural Appalachia. The specialization program at the University of Chicago had graduated its first class, with 30 psychologists specializing in resilience and life reconstruction. On a December night, Bennett came home and found Clara in the kitchen, the same place where it all began. "I have a surprise for you," she said. "What surprise?" She handed him an envelope. "Open it." Inside the envelope was a medical exam. "Clara, are you pregnant? 2 months along." Bennett lifted her in his arms and spun her around the kitchen. "I can't believe it. How did you find out?" "I started to suspect last week. I took the test yesterday." "And are you happy?" "I am, and scared too. I never thought I'd be a mother at 38. You're going to be an amazing mother. If you can help so many people rebuild their lives, imagine what you'll do for our child. Or daughter. Or daughter. Either way. I just want him or her to be healthy and happy. And to learn from an early age that people shouldn't be judged by appearances, and that every story can have a happy ending if we have the courage to rewrite the hard chapters. And that true love sometimes comes in disguise. They kissed in the same kitchen where Bennett had made his crazy revenge marriage proposal, where Clara had revealed her secrets, where so many important conversations had taken place. "Bennett? Yes? Thank you for being so foolish that night." "Why?" "Because your foolishness gave me the greatest happiness of my life. And thank you for keeping so many secrets." "Why?" "Because your secrets turned into the greatest discoveries of my life." 9 months later, Harper Harrison Miller was born on a sunny September morning. When the doctor placed her in Clara's arms, she cried. "She's perfect," she whispered. "Like her mother," said Bennett, kissing both their foreheads. You know what we're going to teach her when she grows up. What? That true beauty comes from within. That courage is doing what's right even when it's hard. And that love can be found in the most unexpected places. And that every life story can be rewritten, no matter how many bad chapters have already been written. And that sometimes the best revenge is to live a full and happy life. 5 years later, Harper was running through the garden of the house while Bennett worked on his second book, and Clara reviewed the postgraduate classes she had created. "Daddy, how did you two meet?" asked the girl, climbing onto his lap. "It's a long story, Princess. Tell me." "Well, Daddy was sad because a girl had been mean to him. And Mommy was working at our house, but she had a secret." "What secret?" "She was a heroine disguised as a housemaid. Like in the movies?" "Exactly like in the movies. And when Dad found out who she really was, he fell madly in love. And you lived happily ever after." Bennett looked at Clara, who had stopped working to listen to the conversation. "We are living happily ever after, yes. Every day. Every day, even on the hard days, because we know we have each other." Harper ran to hug her mother. "Mommy, were you really a heroine in disguise?" "No, my love. I was just an ordinary person going through a tough time in life." "But Daddy said you were a heroine." "Daddy thinks anyone who has the courage to start over is a heroine." "And is he right?" the girl asked. Clara looked at Bennett and smiled. "Yes, my dear. He is right. And did you know that Daddy is also a hero?" "Is he?" "Yes, he is. He had the courage to change, to learn to love for real, to become a better person." "So you're both heroes?" "I think so," said Bennett. "And you'll be a heroine too when you grow up." "How?" "By being brave, being kind, and never judging people by their looks." "I promise." That night, after Harper fell asleep, Bennett and Clara sat in the garden to talk, as they did every night. "Are you happy with our choices?" asked Clara. "Completely. And you?" "I wouldn't change a thing, not even the hard times." "Why not?" "Because the hard times brought us here. If my life had been easy, I would never have learned to cherish every little happiness. And if I hadn't been humiliated by Tiffany, maybe I would never have truly noticed you. Sometimes fate needs to break us a little to rebuild us the right way. Do you think our story will inspire others? It already is. Every patient I see, every student I teach, every person who reads your book, they all take a little piece of our story. And what about Harper? She will grow up knowing that true love exists, that people can change, that every story can have a happy ending. That's the greatest gift we can give her." "I agree, besides plenty of love, of course." "Of course." They were silent for a moment, listening to the crickets singing in the garden. "Clara?" "Yes?" "If you met someone going through what you went through 8 years ago, what would you say to that person?" "I would say that life has a mysterious way of taking us exactly where we need to be. That sometimes we lose everything to discover what really matters, and that it's never too late to start over. And what if it was someone like I was 8 years ago, someone shallow, focused only on silly revenge? I would say that the best things in life can't be bought, only earned. That true love has nothing to do with looks or social status, and that sometimes the right person is right in front of us, waiting for us to have eyes to see. Those are good pieces of advice. They are lessons we learned together." They got up to go inside. Before closing the door, Bennett looked once more at the garden, where they had married for the second time, where Harper had taken her first steps, where so many important conversations had happened. "Clara." "Yes?" "Thank you." "For what?" "You've thanked me millions of times. For accepting my crazy proposal, for keeping your secrets until the right time, for teaching me what true love is, for giving me the most beautiful family in the world. Thank you for having the courage to marry a stranger, for supporting me when you found out about my past, for teaching me to trust again, for turning my life into a fairy tale." "It's not a fairy tale, Clara, it's better than that." "What do you mean?" "It's a true story with real people, real problems, real solutions, and it's ours." They went up the stairs hand in hand, just as they had done every night for 5 years. In Harper's room, they paused to take one last look at their sleeping daughter. "She'll have an easier life than ours," Clara whispered. "I hope so. But if she faces struggles, at least she'll know she can overcome them. Just like we did. Just like we did." The end of the story. Now tell me what you thought of this story and where you're watching us from. If you have something to share with us, leave it in the comments with honest words. Do you believe Clara made the right decision by accepting the marriage? We'd love to read your opinion. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories.